There is an emotion that has destroyed more trading accounts than bad tips, poor timing, and ignorance combined. It does not announce itself. It does not feel dangerous when it arrives. In fact, it feels like the opposite of danger. It feels like salvation. That emotion is hope. Not fear, not greed, hope. Most men will tell you the market is ruled by fear and greed. They are not wrong, but fear and greed are visible enemies. A man knows when he is afraid. He knows when he is greedy. He can feel them pulling at him. He can name them. And because he can name them, he has at least a chance of fighting them. But hope is different. Hope wears the mask of patience. It speaks in the voice of reason. It tells you to hold on, that the market will come back, that you were right all along and the move is simply delayed. And the terrible thing is, sometimes it is correct. Just often enough to keep you believing. Just often enough to keep you holding when you should be cutting. Have you ever sat in a losing position and felt absolutely certain it would recover? Not because the tape told you so, not because the numbers said so, but because you needed it to. Because the loss was too large to admit. Because walking away would mean accepting something you were not ready to accept. That is not patience. That is hope. And in the market, hope is not a virtue. It is a slow poison. I have seen men of considerable intelligence, men who understood charts, who studied fundamentals, who knew the language of the tape, completely undone by this single emotion. They were not undone by a bad tip or a sudden crash. They were undone by refusing to act when the evidence was plain. They held because they hoped. And the market, which has no interest in your feelings, continued in its direction without apology. A man who is afraid will eventually sell. Fear is uncomfortable enough that it forces action. A man who is greedy will eventually take profit. Greed satisfies itself. But a man who hopes can hold a losing position indefinitely. He can watch it fall 10 points, 20 points, 30 points, and still find reasons to stay. He will say the market is wrong. He will say the news will change things. He will say he cannot afford to sell now. And every one of those statements is hope dressed up as logic.
Think about that for a moment. Fear makes you act too fast. Greed makes you act too long. But hope makes you not act at all. And in the market, inaction on a losing position is the most expensive thing a man can do. Here is the mechanism. When a trader enters a position, he builds a story around it. He has reasons. He has conviction. And that conviction is healthy at the start. But when the market moves against him, something shifts. The story does not disappear. It strengthens. Because now the trader is not just defending a trade. He is defending his judgment, his intelligence, his identity. And no man surrenders those things easily. So he holds. And as the loss grows, the hope grows with it. Because the larger the loss, the more unbearable it becomes to realize it. The mind does not say, I am wrong and I should get out. The mind says, the move is coming, and when it does, I will be proven right. That is hope working against you. It is the mind protecting itself from pain by manufacturing belief. Have you ever noticed that the trades you hold the longest are almost never your best trades? They are your worst. You sat in them not because they were working, but because admitting they were not working was too painful. The discipline to cut a loss is not about courage in the dramatic sense. It is about refusing to let hope overrule your rules. The great speculators understood this. They did not cut losses because they enjoyed being wrong. They cut losses because they knew what hope would do to them if they did not. They had seen it before. They had paid for the lesson. A small loss cut quickly is a bruise. It heals and you move on. A loss nursed by hope becomes something else entirely. It becomes the trade that defines you, the one that wipes out the gains of 6 months, the one that changes the size of your account permanently.
I will tell you something else about hope. It does not stay in one position. Once it takes hold of a man, it spreads. He begins to hope in his analysis. He begins to hope in the market itself. He hopes the next trade will make back what this one lost. He hopes conditions will change. He hopes the trend will reverse. He trades not on what the tape is telling him, but on what he needs it to say. And a man who trades on need rather than on evidence is no longer a speculator. He is a gambler, and the market will treat him accordingly. The cure is harder than it sounds. It is not simply to stop hoping. You cannot will an emotion out of existence. What you can do is build a structure that does not give hope room to operate. That structure begins with a decision made before the trade is entered, not after. Before you place a position, you decide exactly where you are wrong. You decide the price at which the market has told you your thesis is incorrect. And when that price is reached, you act. Not after, not when it recovers a little, at that price. Because once the position is open, hope enters the room. It will find every reason for you to move that line. It will show you headlines, remind you of your research, whisper that just a little more time is all you need. And if you have not built the rule before it arrived, you will listen. Hope is most persuasive when the loss is largest, which is exactly when you can least afford to listen to it. Have you ever told yourself you would sell if the stock reached a certain level, then watched it reach that level and held anyway? That is hope overruling your own decision. That is the emotion winning the argument it was never supposed to be part of. There is a particular cruelty in hope that the market seems to understand. It will often give a losing position a small bounce, just enough to make the holder believe the recovery has begun, just enough to keep him in a little longer, and then it continues lower. That bounce is the market testing whether you are running on discipline or on emotion. The disciplined man sees the bounce as an opportunity to exit with less damage. The hopeful man sees it as confirmation that he was right all along. And so
That is the real battle in trading, not the battle to find the right stock or the right entry. Those problems have solutions that can be studied and learned. The real battle is the battle against the stories we tell ourselves when the market goes against us, against the voice that says, wait a little longer, against the part of us that confuses holding a position with holding our self-worth. The trader who masters this does not become someone without hope. He becomes someone who keeps hope in its proper place, which is in life, not in losing trades. In the market, there is no room for it. The tape does not care what you hope. It only cares what you do. A loss accepted quickly is the mark of a professional. It is not a sign of weakness or poor judgment. It is proof that you are thinking clearly, that you are protecting your capital for the trade that deserves it, the trade that is working, the trade where conviction is backed by evidence rather than by need. Cut your losses, not because it is comfortable, it is not, but because every day you hold a position on hope rather than on evidence, you are paying tuition to the market. And the market is the most expensive school there is. The men who last in this business are not the men who are never wrong. They are the men who refuse to let being wrong become being ruined. That is not a talent, it is a decision. And it begins the moment you recognize hope for what it is, not your ally, but your most dangerous opponent.